I've officially completed my training. As of Friday, the new job that I moved up to Baltimore for in December, it's been 7 months of training. And honestly, there have been months where I felt like I was drinking water from a fire hydrant. Like I didn't even know how I didn't drown. I've talked about it, but the month of March was extremely difficult for me. I don't know how I even created a podcast, let alone post any clips or anything like that that month, because it was just so difficult with the training and everything else. And I wasn't really living the most healthy lifestyle either. But maybe you're like me. Maybe you feel like there's a portion where it's just taking forever. Like it's been 7 months of training, and I feel like it's kind of gone on a little bit longer than I anticipated or thought it would. And I look back, and now I can see in hindsight, like I'm thankful that it took time. But during it, I mean, there were some months where I was like, oh my gosh, I just can't wait for this to be done. And maybe you're like me. Maybe you are younger and in high school and you're like, I can't wait to be in college. Or maybe you're in college and you're like, I can't wait to work my job. Or maybe you're graduated from college and you're searching for your job and you can't find a job. So you're like, I can't wait until I find the job that I actually went to school for. Or maybe you're like me and you're still single. I'm 35 years old and still single. And sometimes I ask myself, it kind of feels like it's now or never. Like, when's it going to happen? This process that everybody says to trust is taking forever. But I've kind of realized, and one of the things that has been an encouragement to me, and I hope this is an encouragement to you as well, is that there are times that all of us go through where it feels like the process is taking way longer than it should. But what I've learned is that these are the moments that turn into the stories that eventually we share with others to encourage them along their way and along their journey. And it's not for us to keep, it's for us to share. And so if we quit now, we're not going to have anything to share with them other than the fact that, yeah, you can quit. We could encourage them, in fact, to quit by quitting ourselves. Because I mean, if I was just sitting here in this podcast and I said, hey, look, you should listen to me and I'm talking to you. I sound great sometimes and he sounds kind of smart. He looks kind of distinguished, like a young man who's done some things or whatever. But then you find out that honestly, all I do is play video games all day and I don't really do anything else. And it's green screen and I've CGI'd like my body. I'm actually overweight and not doing anything. You'd be like, I don't want to listen to a word that he's saying. Right? Like you'd be like, I've been catfished by this podcaster. But instead, I look at my resume and I look at all the things that I've done, and it's all those moments where I felt like it's taking way longer than it should, or it's the moments where I feel really down and frustrated and confused. It's all of those moments now that I look back on, and I'm so glad that I have those moments because they're the stories that I share on this podcast. And I hope they encourage you. I mean, if you go back to when I was 18, I moved to South Georgia, and I was so dumb. I moved to South Georgia just on a whim to help open a Chick-fil-A. And I was really excited because a manager was getting hired. A manager that worked at the Chick-fil-A that I worked at in Tennessee was moving down to Georgia, and she got hired. So I went down to Georgia and interviewed for a job at this other Chick-fil-A, worked there. Was excited about getting a chance to start there. I started as a just regular employee. I was just a regular employee. And then I worked my way into management at 18. That didn't last very long because I was young and dumb and didn't really understand how to communicate. And so it was 2009, I moved back to Tennessee. So it was like a year or so. I think it was like 19. I think I was 20 when I moved back to Tennessee. Yeah, 2009. And so I moved back to Tennessee, and that was when I got saved. And that's when I met a group of Christians that were not just hearers of the word or speakers of the word, but they were doers of the word, and they encouraged me. And I had this small group of study where we would meet, and they just really impacted my life. And I had this great opportunity where I got to work at a suicide crisis line on the phone. I worked third shift. And that taught me how to shut up and listen. And as I went through that, I started learning and developing skills of listening. I learned some communication skills. I learned a lot of empathy because I could hear it in their voice that they were going through something. You know, you could hear it. I couldn't see them. This was before the Zoom days. So they'd call in and I would work third shift. And I just remember so many of those conversations that now I lean on. And I'll hear somebody say, I'll run into somebody. I'll say, hey, how you doing? And they'll be like, good. And it's like, I just hear this subtle, like, I should probably check on them. Like, you say you're good. Well, what's going on? Like, I'm here. I care about you. I'm an empath. And that was that time that I worked at the suicide crisis line that really impacted me. And then as I shifted away from the suicide crisis line to get back into a normal schedule, because third shift was really hard, I started working at Panera Bread. And I worked in the cafe and was going to school, just getting my general education classes out of the way, and worked my way up in Panera Bread and had an opportunity to start doing grand openings down in Louisiana. So in 2014, I moved to Louisiana and became a assistant manager. And then I became a training manager. And as a training manager, I moved to multiple cities and I helped open 5 different cafes all throughout the lower boot of Louisiana, from Lake Charles, Louisiana, all the way to Harvey, Louisiana, which is south of New Orleans. But I trained general managers. I trained managers. I trained over 400 staff over the next 2 years of my life. And I learned more management skills. I learned how to communicate even more. I gained so many valuable stories and lessons, and I made so many mistakes. And I have so much that I look and I'm like, man, I wonder when I'm going to like grow up. That was a question that started coming around 2015, 2016. I wonder when I'm going to get a real job. Let me tell you, working in the food service is a real job. It is a lucrative job if you get in the right food service opportunity, but it's a very difficult job. All good jobs, like the really, really good jobs, end up being difficult jobs. Now, it doesn't mean that they're supposed to be so difficult that you are stressed, your family life completely collapses, and everything around you crumbles. No, but it should be hard, like you're lifting weight. Like it's not, you're not just kind of throwing up weight like, it's great. It should be hard. All good jobs are going to be hard at times, where it's just like going to the gym. It's pressure and it's hard, and sometimes you can't handle it, and sometimes you need a spot. But that was like 2016. And then I decided from there, I was going to go back to school for sports broadcasting. And so I ended up going to Virginia in 2016, and I studied sports broadcasting, specifically digital media with a focus in performance. And I went to school for 3 years. And over those 3 years, I did over 60 games on ESPN Plus. I did a couple games on ESPN3. I called basketball, football. I called play-by-play for football, lacrosse, women's field hockey. That was really awesome. Tennis. I did a women's tennis tournament, which was a blast. I did all these different things. I did radio for 3 years and just continued to develop these skills of communication and how to formulate an idea, and then broadcasting, and on top of broadcasting, journalism. And I fell in love with journalism. I just genuinely didn't have the work ethic when it came to that to complete journalism in the way that I probably should have. And in fact, even to this day, I still love it, and I've still pursued journalism in a sense of, I don't trust anybody. I do the research myself. I'll call people and ask people and interview people that I can to learn from them. And it doesn't matter who it is. Like, I'm going to formulate my own opinion of journalism. And I love it. Who knows? Maybe one day I'll write a newsletter or something for the podcast and do journalism stuff. And hopefully one day we'll get to a point where we're interviewing people, again. And I know it's been a while since we've had interviews, but I do enjoy them and I miss them. I've been going through training, so it's been really wild. But hopefully we'll bring those back. And then after the school wrapped up, in 2019, I moved back to Tennessee, and I originally was only going to live in Tennessee for a short while. My grandfather passed away, and I just felt like I needed time with my family. And then COVID hit. And I watched a lot of people struggle, and I watched the sports world shut down, and kind of gave me a little bit of a hesitation to jump back into the sports broadcasting world. And instead, I did what any normal person with insecurities who didn't trust the process, I jumped ship. I bailed on my dreams. I bailed on the things that I was pursuing. I bailed on sports broadcasting. And just being honest, I tried to take a shortcut because the process was taking too long, quote unquote. If I had stuck to the process, I can guarantee you, I would not be talking to you here. I would probably be doing radio, sports radio, and who knows, I may be on TV somewhere doing sports TV as well. I don't know, but I do know that I quit that process. And that's okay because God had a plan, and out of that process, it led me to where I work, the company that I work for. And then that led me to opportunities. Those opportunities were incredibly open to the communication skills that I had. They were also open, and it helped develop a little bit more of formulating how to explain things. Then this podcast was kind of, it stemmed from the time when I originally thought of this podcast when I was at school studying sports broadcasting, and I didn't do anything about it because I quit broadcasting for a while. And so it stemmed and just kind of rehashed. All of this to say, the job that I now work, it all stems from these really cool just checkpoints along the way, these growing pains along the way, these moments where I thought it was taking way too long. And I know I rambled a little bit, so you may be thinking, man, this podcast is taking way too long. But it's true. I share all of that because if you're new to listening to this podcast, I want you to understand I've been through a lot, and I'm not sharing this from a standpoint of you have to trust me and you have to believe everything I say. I want you to formulate your own opinions, and I want you to formulate your own thought. But I do want to challenge you to correctly view your past, accurately view your past, so that you're knowing, yes, this is what happened. This is what I've learned. And then step into your present with a ferocity and a joy. It should be exciting to face the challenges throughout the day. It should be exciting to go to work. Even if it's a stressful work day, it should be exciting to put the pressure, the hard, to lift the weights of learning and developing and building the skills. So it should be awesome and exciting to build the skills that you are going to use in the future. And honestly, you will never be prepared for tomorrow if you do not learn from what you're going through today. I cannot emphasize it enough. You will never be prepared for tomorrow if you do not learn from what you're going through today. I spent years in my 20s just repeating lessons. And yes, I gained skills, but I repeated these lessons because I wasn't quite learning. And it wasn't until probably I was 32, 33 that I really started thinking about all the things that I went through and accurately viewing the past and saying, it's time that I do that. It's time that I do what I know I'm good at and what I know I enjoy. And it may not be the lavish, beautiful dream job that I thought it would be, or it may not be the dream job that I went to school for in sports broadcasting. Instead, I use the same skills, get to use them in a different way that's even more fun, and I get an opportunity to do all of this in a great environment with great people and a great company. And it's exciting because I've learned from my mistakes, and I've learned from that. And now, yeah, I still make mistakes. I made tons of mistakes through training, but I know that the training is what set me up to be able to step into the position that I'm in now. And now that I'm ready to roll out in this position, I'm super excited. There's going to be so many new stories that I get to share. There's going to be so many new things. So you get to see it through along with me. I really hope that this encourages you. And I hope that if you're going through something and you're having or experiencing some form of growing pains, I hope that you recognize that there are things that you've gone through that have prepared you for this. And sometimes it does feel like you're just a shepherd chilling, watching sheep. But you got to keep on guard because you never know when a bear or a lion is going to come. And that's an opportunity to build the skills so that when a Goliath is around and you decide, I want to pursue that, you have the resume to back you. I really hope that you have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope that all of you will remember to give grace, show love, and as always, stay stellar. Peace.